Alrighty, we're starting, and I have Silent Wolf here. And there's always a funny joke about melee and retirements, and it usually goes the louder the retirement, the quicker they come back. So sad news, but it was a long time coming. But I figured this would be a good time, while everything is still reasonably fresh, to get like a full deep interview with the man, the legend, Silent Wolf, Otto Bisno. Bisno?
Bisno, yeah.
Yeah. So how are you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. How you doing, man?
Doing well. It's a good day off. I'm just chilling. I didn't have to wake up early, and I see you're chilling at home too. Um,
I'm big chillin'.
so I want to kind of get the basic stuff out of the way because you don't
hmm
get too much coverage overall. So we're gonna start with the nitty gritty, so we can go. If anyone wants to know Auto 101, you just go to this video. So how'd you get into the scene? How'd you first start?
Um, Thinking back, like I had always played Melee, like not competitively how we play now, but like I was always very competitive at it with my friends back in the day. And me and my neighbor who used to play all the time used to think that we were like the best in the world because like we could beat all of our friend circle. And after finding out about Smash boards, um, and seeing how good people really were, it motivated me to practice even harder because like I said, we had thought previously that we were the best, so we were like kind of complacent with that. But after seeing this like whole world of competitive Smash open to us, or at least me, he didn't really get into the competitive scene. That was pretty much like my drive for getting into the competitive scene, just seeing that it was actually there in the first place.
When was that?
Uh, Early 2005.
So my first video, because I want to get better, was watching Isaiah versus Captain Jack, and I'm kind of curious, what were like the first videos you ever found? Did you use DC++ or was it Smashboards or?
Um, I was like 15 at the time, so I tried using DC++ once, and it was really complicated for me because like when I first started using Smashboards, I was doing it at a friend's house because I didn't even have internet, so I was like a huge computer noob in general. But it was back before YouTube was even a thing. So the first videos I watched were, well, I was a Falco main back then, so naturally I was looking for Falco videos. And I remember the first set I watched was a false Falco set. I don't remember who it was against, but yeah, it was a false Falco set.
Mm. And False Falco, remind me, lives pretty reasonably close to your region. Is that correct?
Sort of. It's about a 14-hour drive, so it's not
Ooh, okay.
super close. He's in like central Canada,
Oh, okay.
south central Canada, like Alberta, that area.
I'm always under the impression that he was like Vancouver or something because I'd always see him come to your
No,
events.
no, he would come to some of the Vancouver events, but he was pretty far out of the way.
So you mentioned '05. So did you get to meet SkyPal and the OG Washington crew, or were they already out of the game by the time you entered?
No, they were still fully active when I had gotten into the scene. And yeah, a lot of people actually don't know about them. They were like the old school Washington crew. They would host tournaments and they were like all really solid players at the time. But um, I actually met like one of their members at the second tournament I had went to, which was this Pink Godzilla tournament in Seattle. The guy had won and then told me like, "Hey, we have Smash Fest at my place in Bellevue. You should come by sometime." And that's kind of what like pulled me into the scene and tournaments in general. Because before that, like, I didn't really know how to navigate Smash boards too well, like I was talking about. So the only tournaments I would see were ones that popped up in the tournament discussion, not the regional discussion. So like PAX, stuff like that. So those guys like drew me in. I started going to their Smash Fest, and they kind of took me under their wing. And that's where I met a lot of players you still see today, like Bladewise. He had been going to those for like a couple months by the time I started going. Players that were also around in the scene for a long time, but aren't around anymore, like DJ Combo,
Mm.
Gimpy Fish. They would also go to those.
So you were a cool kid right away. They were like, "You're cool, come over." I'm totally messing with you. So did you get to hang out with Kai, Variety Barrage, even Rory, the Pikachu main, or
By the time I was introduced to those guys, Rory was pretty inactive. Variety Barrage was like my Fox idol back in the day, though, because like he was really solid. Also played Green Fox, so I really looked up to him when I first got into the scene.
So you mentioned you were first a Falco main. Was he the primary reason that you decided to switch to Fox, or was there another reason?
No, I actually mained Fox before Falco, but during my early years in competitive Melee, I would bounce around between the two pretty frequently.
S- That's a lot better than my journey because I started with Link and Ness, and I realized after a year that they were really terrible. So right off the bat, you picked the high tiers.
Yeah, I mean, I went through little phases of like convincing myself I would main other characters. Like after watching Germ's old combo video, I wanted to main Link, and that lasted for like 2 days.
And then you're like, this character sucks.
Yeah.
Um, so I know that offhand you have a combo video named Zolgandi. So I'm just kind of curious, how big did Zolgadis, if any, play a role in your melee career?
Hmm. I'd say a pretty big one. I think okay, so Shine Blind was definitely the first video I ever watched on YouTube. I remember that. And like I said, I used to bounce around between Fox and Falco a lot back in the day, and I remember Shine Blind Zelgadis' video was actually the reason I went back to Fox during that time period. I was like, all right, I'm maining Fox again. I want to do these Wave Shine combos.
That's so. I'm pretty sure you're like one of like tens of thousands of people that
Yeah,
remember that
yeah,
video.
for sure.
So you mentioned Variety Barrage. You mentioned you talked about Zagatis, but were there any other early, pioneers that you kind of modeled your game off of, or you looked up to in the early kind of phases of Melee?
Um,
MLG videos, PC Chris, the Japanese foxes.
not as much as those two. I definitely like took a lot of inspiration from Mewtwo King's Fox back in like the OC2 days, like around that era. That's like 2006, I think.
Okay, so yeah, there weren't too many like heavily technical foxes, and I think one of the things, I didn't really know you very well. I think I saw you very briefly at Genesis, which was 4 years later, but you developed
Hmm.
this reputation as like this like really technical fox. So I'm just kind of wondering like, what your early routines were, like what motivated you to kind of pursue like being that guy, or I just want to hear a
Yeah,
little bit more about that.
so when I first found out about competitive Melee and watched the videos of these players for the first time, like I was a huge noob when it came to Melee or fighting games in general. So I didn't really, I mean, me among pretty much everyone else didn't have the best idea on how to go about improving in these games. And I thought that as long as I could do everything I saw these people doing, I would be as good as them. So like I just started to practice my tech skill like crazy, and there did come a time when I realized like that was only going to get me so far, but from like when I started to like maybe mid 2008, my focus was trying to be the most technical player a lot more so than trying to be like the best player out there.
Did that come with like consequences? Because a lot of the reputation in the early days was like this guy's really smart, or this guy's just a technical fox but doesn't know anything.
Yeah, back then, like the way that you defined a player was divided into technical skill and mind games, and actually stayed like that for much longer than it should have. But I feel like I was responsible for a lot of like the branding of people being like, oh, if they're like a technical player, they're not a very smart player, and that whole stereotype. Because I definitely fit that stereotype for a long time, like just being super aggro, not caring too much about winning, just going in fully intent on trying to style on them and impress people. But that definitely created like an era of foxes and a reputation for those foxes of just being like all tech skill and no mind games.
Well, I mean, back then, like there wasn't enough time. You either had to do one or the other. I mean, now the game is out for like 10 years now. You can have the time to do both.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you remember the Smash Chains, the Hugo post that he made like many years ago?
Yeah, yeah, that's like what was coming into mind when I was talking about that.
Just for YouTubers who are watching this later, there's a Silent Wolf chain specifically for players that that you just talked about. So I guess, in the early days, you're this very big technical players, but I'm kind of curious. I feel like everybody has that Korean DJ list, whether they like it or not, of like rivals that they like grow with or they want to beat. What was your list in the beginning of people you want to beat, or who were your rivals in the early days?
Hmm. Mostly people within my region, I'd say, because I didn't do a whole lot of traveling.
Like, what were the names?
Um, People around my skill level, so Blade Wise. I mean, me and Blade Wise have been rivals for years at this point. And then DJ Combo, Eggs, Kamaster, who is a lot more active nowadays too. Gimpy Fish, pretty much everyone who is like in our crew, like basically the Washington group that um, followed the whole like SkyPal era.
If you were to give me an estimate in your entire career, how much money did you rob off of Bladewise because of the fact that you were at the tournament?
Um, like up until today, ooh, I don't know.
Because I hear those
Probably like between like $20,000 and $30,000.
because I hear those Washington monthlies can get pretty meaty with the $10 entry fee and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
they were for a while, but I feel like things have kind of died down up here over the last year or so.
Eh, Yeah, I mean, I the numbers I heard were crazy for like those Emerald cities. Now,
Oh yeah,
so you mentioned Bladewise, but you also developed, a lot of interesting friends down the road. I mean, in the early days, we had the DBR combo videos, and then all of a sudden, I'm not sure. Can you comment on this, of like when you first met Lovage, because you guys ended up doing some cool things together?
I first met Lovage in 2008. I went down to SoCal pretty much just to hang out with Mango and stuff, and I ended up going to this Oxnard local. But the day before the local, we all went to Joe Replicate's house because he had this huge Smash Fest going on, and I sat on a TV with like Lovage and Neighborhood P and just started playing friendlies with them because I had like heard of Lovage a little bit on Smash boards as him being like a up and coming technical player. So I was like, oh, this guy's cool. I want to meet him. And then like from there, we became pretty good friends because he started improving a lot from that point too. So I was like, man, this guy is really good and technical.
So there's no semblance of like a rivalry here because Lovage was becoming the technical fox, but you were the technical fox, so there's no kind of like.
Not really, surprisingly. We were more like contemporaries than rivals for the most of it.
So
Like
he,
I was more happy to see like another like fox of my kind, you know. I wasn't like, oh, he's trying to replace me or anything like that.
yeah. So game recognizes game. You guys both thought you guys were cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So he created Berserker and you created Zongandi. So how did that collaboration for Revolution kind of come up?
um I don't know. Once he released that, I think it was my idea. I just thought it would be a cool idea if we did a video together because at the time like nobody else was really putting together these tech skill videos. So, and like my videos were getting a lot of hype, his was, so I just thought it would be cool if we collabed on one.
And then magic happened and it went on the Waffle
Yeah.
77.
The only regret I had about Revolution was that we definitely could have put more effort into it, but at the time, like I said, there weren't really any other players putting in work with these kind of videos, so we were pretty complacent with anything that we put in the video at the time, you know.
Right. Um, so, but it was still transcended for its time. I remember watching that video and I was like, wow,
Yeah.
this is amazing.
Yeah,
Um,
it was still super cool.
are there any other combo videos? Because it's kind of interesting when we look at it now. We have the Twitch clip, so I think that's kind of replaced the combo video. But in the early days, what were your like some of your like favorite combo videos that just kind of stood out above everything else?
Yeah, once it got to like 2010s or whatever, the whole combo video era was starting to end. But like back then, that was like everybody's inspiration for picking up characters, seeing what characters are capable of. And like for me, especially in the early days, like oh five to like 2008, I've watched pretty much every combo video that anyone posted. And for me to pick and choose ones that I enjoyed the most, probably Well, any of the DBR ones, obviously. Those are some of the first ones I saw before I even like knew what those characters could do, like Mike Nasty Samus combo video. And as silly as some of those things seem now, like they were definitely inspirational. And
Crazy
yeah,
Jungle Bird.
Crazy Jungle Block. That was more of like a tech skill video, but definitely cool. That was Atlas, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I just loved all of those, man. Same with actually Super Doodle Man's like tasks, like the action replay videos he made, like Perfect Control, the Perfect Adventure Mode ones. Those really stood out to me back in the day.
Those are really cool. We're going to actually talk about speedrunning a little bit because I feel like
Hmm.
there's a lot of parallels. But kind of going back into the spirit of competition, like you started playing in locals, it seems like you're going to these Smash Fests that were pretty, stacked. But when did you kind of realize like, hey, like I'm actually pretty good at this game?
Um,
Was there like a tournament or like a moment where things just kind of clicked?
maybe like sometime in 2007. Because I knew like in '06 I wasn't going to too many events, but like there were so many better players than me in Washington alone, let alone like the Northwest. Because at that point I had started traveling to like Oregon and BC. But definitely at some point in 2007 I realized like I had a lot of potential. Because it's still probably one of the most memorable years in Smash for me. Because the summer, me, Eggs, and DJ Combo took a train ride to FC Diamond, which was like a really big deal at that time. And then the next week we went to OC3, and I managed to get 13th and 7th at those respectively. So at that point, I realized like I could do this. I could like be a top melee player.
Yeah, top eight at OC3. I don't think a lot of people talk about. It always feels like, you know, I'm not sure if you ever felt this way. Like people always talked about the usual suspects, but no one ever mentioned you. Did you ever feel like you were underrated, like in like the '07 to '09 era, or how do you feel
Um,
about your kind of perception of where you were?
I don't really know. It was such a long time ago, so it's hard for me to really pinpoint that.
No, that's fair. Well, I mean, shortly after we had the interesting event where you're the only one, not as in Chu, Muti King, and all those list of names, you're the only one to take Mango in a pound three bracket set.
Oh
So
yeah.
we've heard Mango's side of the story, but I kind of want to hear yours on pound three bracket.
Okay, so basically what happened with pound 3 was it was the last day, and right before the top, it was either top 32 or top 48 bracket, we had to evacuate the primary room that we were using as the venue, this really spacious room, and make our way across the campus. I think it was into this much smaller room, and it was really hot, stuffing all the people in there. And it was also like 1 a.m. at that point, so pretty much everybody, not everybody, like a lot of people I talked to had stopped kind of caring as much about the event at that point. And when I saw that I had Mango in my bracket, he also was not really caring about the tournament, and I was really not a fan of the Jigglypuff matchup back then. So I was like, hey, maybe I'll get Mango to play like some Link Dittos or some shit. And then he was like immediately down with it. I was like, yo, do you want to do like Link Dittos or something instead? This sucks. He was like, yeah, let's do it. And
Did you,
then
oh,
go
keep
ahead.
going.
Oh, and then after that we did. I suggested DK Dittos because well, I suggested Link Dittos in the first place because me and my friend Ben from high school, we would always play Link Dittos. So I really enjoyed them. But then I suggested DK Dittos next because there was like a tournament before that in Oregon where we did a low tier tournament, and I had played DK for like one of the first times, and me and Kamaster did DK Dittos in the finals, and I was like, oh, this is lit. So I suggested that to Mango, and he was like, yeah, we can do that. Only if it's on Jungle Japes, though. And then I just cheesed him on Japes, and that was it.
So you greased him because you knew that you had way more experience than him in those respective
Yeah,
eras.
it was some low key grime. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, so like you go through the bracket and you're in winners, he's in losers. Did you ever think in the back of your mind that like Mango was gonna make that run?
Sort of, yeah. Um, I'm not gonna say I knew for sure he was gonna win that because he had like a mountain to climb, but I we had faith. Like we by the time me and DJ Combo and Eggs were rolling out, Mango was trying to leave with us, but we were like, no, dude, you have to stay and win the tournament. And we were like half joking, but like we knew that he could do it, because we had just come from I think Super Champ Combo where he got third, showing signs of like really being able to beat PC Chris and Muta King. So we wanted to encourage him to stay at least.
And also just for the fact that like he was our sole West Coast hope in the sea
Yeah,
of
that
East
too.
Coast. A lot of people don't know how stacked East Coast was in that era because like Ken and Isaiah weren't really a thing anymore at that point, and we
Yeah,
literally had nobody.
yeah.
So you start traveling a bit more. You get a bunch of like 13s, 17s, 9s, and 13s. But you would like kill in Washington locals. Like it seemed like you would top two or top three. Um, did you ever? What was it that kind of you felt in that era between like pound four, the pounds, the apexes, the genesis that kind of held you from like getting to like top eight or better?
Um, just the amount of work that I put into the game wasn't like enough to be on that level. Like I honestly felt satisfied as long as I was getting 17th at a national, just to kind of like let people know like I can still compete with these guys. But I never really was interested in putting in so much work to like care about being like the best player, for example.
So, what were your kind of goals then at that time? Because when I look at like SSBM rank now, everybody's just like, I want to climb the ranks, I want to be the best.
Yeah, as people probably know, we didn't even have rankings back then.
Yeah.
So, um, I don't know. The Smash community was much more niche back then, so there wasn't as much of a desire to just be the top player. Like there wasn't so much on the line back then, and I don't know. I feel like I was honestly just content, like playing, like improving as I just play along with it, not necessarily like grinding out new strategies to improve in my room like people do today. I was just having fun with it and
And then
like
like,
kind of having fun casually competing.
so you go to events, you'd see your friends like every like 4 months, like that you
hmm
like to hang out with. You'd play some melee, you get some food, you travel, and that seemed to be good
Yeah,
enough.
yeah. It was a much more relaxed experience back then. So
Well, then but then out of the blue, these 13s and 17s were turning into 9s at like at Evo, and then you hit top eight, and then you had the GU Fox with it run. So like, was there any change in motivation? Because all of a sudden you were like this like
um,
top 10 level player, borderline or debatably.
I don't remember when I started getting more motivated about it. I feel like maybe 2013. That's when I had got like my first like top 12 placing in a while at Apex 2013. And then like after that I happened to get ninth at Evo that same year too. But that's when Melee was really starting to like blow up after that. So I think I just like coincidentally did pretty well at those tournaments, but then after that I realized like the scene was getting way bigger and like all the local scenes were blowing up, so I was just feeling a lot more motivated. Like it felt a lot more valid to put that much time into Melee at that point.
Yeah.
Felt more like it was going towards something, so that motivated me, but I still wouldn't say like I had the drive to try and be like the best player or anything, but I was definitely like a little more into it at that point.
Mhm. And we always mention the homie factor, but it seems like you were rewarded monetarily, and this could be like a part-time job to kind of fund your schooling.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
I remember vaguely, and I don't think anything's wrong with this whatsoever. Would skip on some of the majors because there would be like a monthly at in Washington, and you'd go to that. Um,
Yeah, because once the scene really started blowing up, like late 2013, because of a Evo combined with the documentary, bringing a lot of players in, letting players know that there's like still big tournaments like this happening. Obviously, Evo 2013 was like by far the biggest tournament, but yeah, like the local scenes were really blowing up, and for me, it was like I could stay at this local, make $1,000, and as like somebody who's like pretty young, and that's a lot of money, it's a big deal. Or I could spend 700 bucks to go to this tournament, and that's like a pretty big opportunity cost.
and if you get 70, you might get like $100.
Yeah, I mean back then like tournaments didn't even really pay out that low, like that to placings that low like they do today.
It's actually pretty insane that we actually had like an $100,000 prize pool for Summit. I never imagined that. Did you?
Was it really that big?
It was something absurd. I think first place was like 30 something thousand dollars.
Man, yeah, I never thought I'd see anything like that in the Smash community now.
Um, Well, so there's like kind of an interesting kind of thing because, I have this struggle too of balancing my real life responsibilities and, melee related responsibilities. So you're doing really well, but you also couldn't attend much because of school. So I'm kind of wondering
Yeah,
like how the priorities kind of worked for you, especially in like 2014 to like 2016.
2014, 2016. That was during that time period. That's pretty much when I transferred into a university. So I was really trying to focus on that for the most part, especially the first year while I was there. And that just meant like going to only like one or two big tournaments a year. And that was fine. But I would usually try and prioritize school over Smash.
And you're doing archaeology? I forget
No, no,
exactly.
I'm doing geology.
Geology, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Gosh, I almost got that mixed up. So, are you going to be done soon? Are you graduated? I don't
Uh,
know.
I graduated last December, pretty much the
Okay,
end of the year. So I've just been trying to figure stuff out since then.
okay. Very cool. Well, congratulations. I didn't know what the timeline was. I knew
Yeah,
that
yeah,
school
thanks.
has always been a priority for you. Um, was there ever kind of a time? I mean, I know that like players like Pew Pew and some others, even Hugo talked about moving from his full time job. Did you ever kind of have this like wrestling moment where you're like, do I want to pursue school or do I want to go full time Smash? Did you ever have that kind of struggle?
Mm, Not between school and Smash, because I had been going to community college and playing Smash for like 4 years, although it like wasn't nearly as intense as university before that. But I knew that I wasn't gonna like drop out of school for Smash. But like Hugo, for example, is in a different position. He's already done with school. He's already got experience with working. He can take a break from that and put it on the back burner. For me, like I wasn't even done with school yet, so I wanted to at least do that, and I knew I could like still like play Smash on the side,
So
and it
you
wouldn't be too bad.
so you always knew that this was just going to be a side thing, like a hobby that kind of got bigger than a hobby, but it's always going to be a hobby.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely like a bigger priority than school back in like high school, I'd
Yeah.
say. Although it was still like not as competitive as it is today, but it there were definitely times where I put Melee as my number one priority.
I got an interest. So what if player salary? Because we look at like League and Overwatch, and in League, our top laner on Cloud9 got poached for rumors of $1 million per year. Now, if
Hmm.
if Melee, let's say like the salaries were 10 times more than what you would currently get as a sponsored player, would that kind of sway your decision, or were you kind of just still set in what you want to do?
Mm, Maybe it's hard to say. At least not at the moment. I don't think so. Maybe in the future if that were the case, but I really don't see that being the case. So it's kind of hard to imagine.
Hmm.
I
So
can say that although like being really into it and being a sponsored player was enjoyable, I feel like it kind of put this like feeling of obligation of playing the game on me, and that definitely took some of the fun out of it for me. I like to just be able to play it at my leisure.
hmm, it's kind of like the artist that gets a job and then like the art's no longer, fun.
Yeah, kind of.
Um, So when did you kind of, you've been a sponsored player, you were on Team Secret, you're borderline a top 10 level player, you could make cases for it in one of the years of, I don't know, SSBM rank. When did you kind of realize that it was like no longer kind of fun for you anymore?
Um,
Was it after an event or did it just kind of slowly build?
Slowly built for sure, and I still haven't like totally pinpointed the reason. Like I definitely still enjoy Melee and really like the scene. It's more that I don't really see myself being like a competitor just for how much effort it would take to be like at the skill level I would want to be to because I've been like pretty close to the top for a long time now, and that's kind of where my standards are set. So if I was to maintain that, it would require like pretty much all of my free time, and Like there's other things I want to do too, like speedrunning, for example. It's something I've put on the back burner for a long time, but over the last couple of years, it's really been like building up in my interests, I'd say. After having like taken a step back this past year from Melee, I feel like I can more like safely say like I think I probably would rather do speedrunning than Melee, cuz not to say like speedrunning is better than Melee or anything. It's just kind of where I'm at right now. Um, like for a long time in the competitive Melee scene, I would have like you would go to one, maybe two big tournaments a year to keep yourself established or whatever, feel like you're getting a lot out of it. But nowadays, to really achieve that, you need to attend big events every month or two. Involves a lot of traveling, a lot of commitment to the game, and I don't know. I felt like during the last year when I was still pretty active, I was getting pretty burnt out doing that. So I don't know if like by the standards of competitive Melee today, if it's really for me anymore.
Mm. So it's like it seems like it's less satisfying, and there's also more work and maintenance that has to be done.
Yeah, less satisfying is another thing because like I said, I never really had the drive to be like the best player, and I still don't. I feel like if I were to take it seriously again, like what I would get out of it is nothing different from what I've already achieved, like some high placings like Dewey Foxwood at HTC Throwdown. Like that's kind of what I was looking for, if anything, maybe even better. And for me to achieve better than that, I don't think I'd really enjoy putting in the work to do that. So
Well, that's fair. I was really happy the first time I saw you do. I'm not sure if it was GDQ or AGDQ when you did the Donkey Kong Country.
yeah, it was
Unfortunately,
AGDQ last year.
unfortunately, you missed some of those. Was it 1 or 2 frame links?
Yeah, there's a lot of one frame tricks that save a lot of time in that run. So
So, you did DKC in front of the large audience. What other games do you
hmm
speedrun? Do you speedrun Mega Man X? I don't remember the whole list.
yeah, so DKC is probably my most serious speedrun. I've put a lot of effort into it on and off since like 2011. And other games I run have been less serious, but that might change in the future, like DKC 3, Mega Man X2, Yoshi's Island, probably some other games as well. Like I said, it's always been kind of on the back burner from Melee, so I don't have like too much established at the moment.
Mm. So you don't have to answer this too much. You can always skip this question, but
hmm
I imagine so. I try to play Yoshi's Island and DKC, and it's really demanding on my like hands and wrists. And you play Melee, and then you probably stream and you type a lot. So I wonder how do you juggle all that? I feel like there's like a limited stamina on what your wrists and hands can handle.
Yeah. Um, I feel like, I mean, I've had hand pain for like years now, so it kind of got to the point where it couldn't handle any of that. So right now I'm just kind of trying to like stay back from all of that right now, not playing Melee, not speed running, trying to use my computer as minimally as possible. Um, sorry, I forgot exactly what the question was already.
Like, I mean, I think you answered it. Like
hmm
in terms of like how do you balance like your wrist health with like all these kind of things? I mean, do you think you would have been more active in Melee? I mean, if this was less than an issue?
Yeah, after Genesis 4 last year in AGDQ 2017, they were like a week apart. I had a really big drive to improve both in speedrunning and Melee because like usually events have that kind of effect on you if they don't burn you out. But then after like a week or two after those events, I was trying to do too much and my hands just reached this like breaking point and I realized, all right, I need to like do these things less, like only do one of these things. So I'm really just trying to like rest my hands, strengthen them, and get to a point where I can do at least one of those things at a time. But I think me trying to find a balance between Melee and speedrunning beginning like a year or two ago was really what started like pushing my hands too far.
So Last year, I think it was Genesis 4 you DQ'd yourself. I believe you may have sandbagged or did something at Full Bloom in Emerald City, at one of the Emerald
Mm-hmm.
Cities. So, here on moving forward, are you going to just be like this, like Genesis Evo, show up once or twice a year kind of Smash player?
Um,
Or where do you see yourself in the community? Because you definitely said you weren't going to, like, you were still going to play net play. Um,
yeah, I still have interest in playing the game from time to time, just not being like a serious competitor. I don't. I may end up entering some tournaments in the future. Definitely not Genesis coming up next week,
hmm.
but maybe sometime in the future. Yeah, just as an excuse to like go to the events and see the friends I've made through the game.
Have you
But
ever thought about commentary or putting on a different
um,
hat?
I've considered it. A lot of people have like postulated the idea to me because they liked my commentary at Summit too. Um, but I'm not 100%. I'm not gonna like actively try and pursue like a commentary career in Melee. I don't think. Like if I do go to events, I wouldn't mind hopping on the mic from time to time. But I don't think I'm gonna pursue like just being a commentator who travels for that.
Mm. But if like a random big tournament said, "Hey, Otto, we like your Smash Summit commentary, flight, hotel, plus some money," would you be down?
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
All right. Well, I'm gonna be advocating for you because I really did love your Smash Summit, and I think the issue with players like me, like I'm not super technical and I'm not as caught up with the meta. So like you guys point out way much more than what I can see from
Mm-hmm.
the gameplay. Um, so we've talked about your career, and it seems like you're pretty set, and it's awesome that you're pursuing what you want to do at the end of the day. But kind of reminiscing, I do have some random questions for you in terms of your accomplishments, and like I guess in terms of accomplishments, like what is the one big takeaway you say is your greatest melee related accomplishment?
Um, hmm. I'm not super sure.
Well, okay. While you're thinking about that, I'll ask you a second question.
All
How'd you
right.
how'd you end up how'd you end up getting Mewtwo King's number towards like the end of like your career?
um,
You beat him like the last 3 out of 4 sets.
so Mewtwo King is actually the player who motivated me to stop being that technical player who's just fully aggro, doesn't really think too much about how he's going in. After he beat me at Tourney Play 2, I think it was, at Washington Regional, it really woke me up. Like, maybe I shouldn't be trying these ridiculous up those shine combos. Maybe I should be trying to be more efficient, make these hits count when I actually hit this guy. And from then on, he visited Washington like once every few months to farm our tournaments, and I would end up playing him more often than not in bracket. So he was like the high level player that I got to play the most, like on the high level. So he's kind of like what I aspired to be and had experience on how to do so. So eventually, I wasn't like sitting at home watching all of Mewtwo King's videos or anything, but I think it just kind of happened to be that like my style developed in such a way to deal with players like Mewtwo King specifically. And once I was able to beat him that first time at Do You Fox With It, it kind of like broke the curse, I felt like I could do it again, not have that same level of pressure like, oh my god, I'm gonna beat Mewtwo King. It's like, all right, dude, you've done this before. Just like stay level headed. You can do it.
If we replace like Mewtwo King with any of the other like top 6 players, you feel like similar things would have probably happened then?
Uh, it's hard to say for sure, but yeah, I think so.
Uh, I guess in terms of accomplishments, you're kind of inhibited by school, school, your risks, and like sometimes motivation. So is there kind of anything you kind of leave with and you go like, I wish like I did this differently, or I wish I could have accomplished this?
Hmm.
Like kind of like un I don't know the phrase, but things you want to like kind of tighten the knots on or like loose ends on.
I always like thought to myself like, would I regret not having like put in the full effort I could have into competitive melee? But then I always think about like I try and remember how I felt in that moment. Like it really didn't seem like it would be enjoyable to try and put in that level of effort because I feel like I understood how to improve to get to that level, but just didn't want to put in all that effort. And I mean, the whole point of doing it is not just to compete and drain yourself, it's to enjoy yourself. So as long as I remember that that's what seemed like what would be the most enjoyable thing for me to do, just play, be like a top player, but not the best player, then I remain pretty satisfied with that.
That's
So in that regard, there's not really loose ends I need to tie up. Since you mentioned my hands, I mean, if I could go back in time, I would definitely take better care of my hands.
Yeah, I think we're all young. We're like, oh, there's no way we're gonna get hurt by this.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty like ignorant in that regard. I didn't know that tendonitis and carpal tunnel were issues like that. I kind of just like you play too much one day, you feel pain in your hands. You don't really realize it's like some kind of condition, and the pain is fairly tolerable. So you're like, oh, I can just play through the pain. It doesn't hurt that bad. But you don't realize you're like damaging yourself in the long term.
Mm. So you touched on something really important because I'm pretty sure there's not like 15 other silent wolves that like are like top 10 potential that are juggling a bunch of things, but it is a common question that I get a lot. Is like, how do you balance your real life responsibilities like school or work with melee? Like, is there any other advice you can kind of touch upon in like kind of balancing and juggling the two?
I think it helps a lot that I had been playing competitively for so long. Like, if somebody was really trying to learn the game and trying to do so while balancing like school and work, for example, it would be really difficult. But in my case, like, as long as I'm like keeping up with current events, the meta tournaments that are happening and watching those, like, I kind of improve alongside that. Like, I've been exposed to the game enough where I can see how other people are improving and understand that well enough to implement it. So even though I wasn't always playing, I would still be able to kind of improve as long as other people are improving.
So we have like a new wave of these like new school kids that are coming up. A lot of Foxmains actually.
Hmm.
Um, are you just gonna come and grandpa them and be like, you guys are still not good, and then you just give them a trashing, or like, what do you think about
Uh,
all these like new Fox players like IBDW or like Absent Page, Rick? Have you watched them at all?
yeah, I've seen all of those guys. No, I think it's sick. I'm not like trying to bring them down like these guys aren't as good as me or anything. And they're probably like better than I am right now anyways, but I think it's cool seeing a lot more up and comers.
What do you notice in kind of a more gameplay standpoint about the newer Foxes, especially in like the last 2 years? Like, what are they adding to the game, or like, what are they implementing? How's the meta kind of changing for Foxes?
Mm, I don't know. All of these up and coming foxes seem
Foxers.
to. I guess that works too. They seem to have a really good balance of like technical skill, like how to pull off their combos, and also like pretty good neutral games. Like back in the day when you would see up and coming foxes, it would usually be one or the other.
So,
I think that's a consequence of like who people are watching. Like nowadays, I feel like a lot of people probably watch Leffen since he's like a really good textbook fox if you want to go with that. I guess nothing too unnecessary, and you see that kind of unfold in all these player styles.
mm. Do you have any kind of auto peeves when people talk about playstyles and stuff like the larger community?
Mm, I probably do. None come to mind like off the bat.
I'm trying to like think of an example that would apply here. I don't know, like S2J like not edge guarding well has like kind of become a meme, even though he's kind of improved,
Yeah. Mm.
or like this guy plays like a Norwalk fox, or this guy's a Swedish fox, or I don't know. That kind of bugs me when
I'm
like
not
the
really peeved. I wouldn't say I'm peeved by any of those things. I feel like sometimes people take the S2J edge guarding stereotype a little too far, though.
hmm. Let's see. There's a couple of funny questions, so I'm gonna bring it back, and we'll probably come to a close soon. Are
Hmm.
we ever gonna see Afro fuzzy-haired Otto ever again?
Uh, Probably not. Honestly, like when I grow my hair out that long, it doesn't really like fro out the same way. It turns into more of like a Jew fro, and it's not really what I'm looking for.
So context, this was roughly like pound four era that you had that hairstyle, right? 2010.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, What do you think about like so there's certain things of the community that's changed, and I remember one video that stood out to me was you versus Hacks at Pound 3, and you were getting viciously trash talked. Like
Yeah.
what were you thinking during that set? I felt so bad for you.
Um, let's see. That was pound three. That was after we had moved into the really hot small room. I was basically sitting on a couch with 13-year-old hacks or however old it was, just like swarmed by loud New Yorkers. I mean, the video is still on YouTube if you guys want to check it out. You can like see everyone in the first match. It was really hot. I was like really distracted by everyone, but at the same time, it wasn't like I said, at that point, I kind of stopped caring about the tournament anyways, because it was late, it was hot. It felt like the seriousness had been taken away from it. Like, it seemed like less official since we had to like move to some small venue. So I was playing like I don't feel bad about it because the only match where I played Fox in that set, I had two stocked him.
Mm.
But then I me and Hex didn't really like get along too much after that set. Like he would trash talk on Smashboards, but that was mostly because he was like 14, so I didn't really take it to heart.
Oh my gosh, old school Smashboards was its own creation.
Yeah.
It's you had a. It seemed like everybody had beef with you, and it wasn't like even your fault for any particular reason. Like Koryu and P, and I'm not sure P had beef with you, but I know Koryu had like a
me and
grudge.
me and P used to argue a little bit, but we became pretty good friends after a while.
You know what's kind
I
of
think
fun?
I think he had bigger problems with a lot of other people than me.
He had like a list of like 30 other people.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting that you mentioned that because there are some things I don't like about the esports era of Smash, but I think people forget like how poorly tournaments were run in the old school days.
Yeah. See, a lot of that stuff was more acceptable back in the day because we didn't really know any better. And also, like, a lot of us were like 16. So we're just like, oh my God, we're playing Smash. And just being like a dickhead on the internet was pretty much the norm.
Is there anything you miss about like the old school era that you kind of wish was more prevalent in like 2018?
Um, Not a whole lot. Uh, I do miss when combo videos were like prevalent because those were a big inspiration to players. I feel like they still would be to newcomers today, although there are like a lot more resources online for stuff. There's that. I don't know. I feel like for the most part, the scene is like definitely like doing things better nowadays.
Hmm. Let's see. I don't really have anything to follow up with, but is there anything you want to say before we close?
Uh, Not really, to be honest. I
Okay.
feel like
I
I've
was
said a
gonna
lot.
ask you if you want to shout out your fans and stuff, but or shout out your sponsors or whatever, but we're not doing a tournament video right
I
now.
would say that I really appreciate like all the kind comments people have given me on Twitter since announcing my retirement already. Like I really didn't expect very many people to care like that, but I really appreciate it.
Mm. Well, I mean, you have quite a legacy, and once again, thanks for doing this interview with me.
Yeah, no problem.
I really wanted to make sure while you were still available that we could get this video. There are other players that have retired that don't really do media stuff anymore. Like I want to
Hmm.
do a PC Chris video, but like I can't get a hold of him, and so I'm just like,
Yeah, I'm not gonna like disappear from the community forever from the internet like that. So
yeah.
I'll still be around.
But just in case, that's why we're doing this. So
Yeah.
thank you for doing this interview. And if anyone at